Hello and welcome. Today I'm going to go over the basics of combat and space engineers. We're going to go over weapons and what you should choose and maybe a little bit about how to set them up. So first of all, let's talk about the difference between large and small grid. So over here we have a large grid Gatling gun, Gatling turret, and over here we have a small grid version of it, which is also rather large for some reason. The difference in these two is massive. So the amount of hit points that they have, the amount of damage that they can do is drastically different. We're talking like 5 or 6x at least. So if you want to win a battle, you will be using large grid. If you have other goals, such as distracting the enemy, or trying some things out, or experimenting, or having fun, just a good time, you may do small grid. But if you want to win a battle, you will most likely be using a large grid ship and large grid weaponry. So that's just a general rule of thumb. I'm sorry it's that way, but it is. So next, let's talk about what you should choose, which weapons you should have in your ship as far as turrets go. Turrets are going to be kind of your main bread and butter mostly because you're able to shoot quite a few different targets with them and configure them, and so when you're adding more damage to your ship, you're probably doing that with turrets. So first of all, let's start with kind of your main bread and butter here, which is going to be either the Gatling and or the interior turret. Both of these have the ability to headshot players, so they do quite a bit of damage to players. And if you are worried about any players in your game, you will need a fair amount of these to keep them from coming up and grinding down your ship and hacking it and taking it over. So this is definitely important for players. The other part is that both of these are pretty great at taking care of small grid drones. So keep that in mind. They'll shred them pretty quickly. They're great for dealing with fighters because they have a high rate of fire and they can keep up with them better than a lot of the other weapons can. So you're probably going to have a mix of these on your ship. And if you are fighting players, then make sure you have good coverage so that there's always at least one of these shooting at them if they're trying to grind down your stuff. The difference between them, the Gatling turret can be conveyed, so you can send items in there. The interior turret is manually loaded and has much less hit points as well. But you can just kind of freely put these around your ship, so it's pretty handy. So next, we're going to need kind of meat and potato damage dealing weapons, and we've got two options for that. We have the assault cannon on the right and the artillery cannon on the left. The assault cannon has a max range of 1400, and the artillery has a max range of up to 2000, which is insane. Now, I would always lean towards the artillery if you can, but it does take uranium for the ammo, and it's not available in small grid. So use artillery if you can. If not, fall back to assault. And these are going to be your main damage dealers. And then other options. This is the rocket turret. I don't recommend it. It is an outdated weapon and has not been updated, so generally rockets are not great right now in the game. There are some niche cases to use it, but generally I would avoid the rockets. Next is the custom turret controller, which can be used to create your own turrets. Again, this is the go-to when you search for information, and it is not recommended. So in order to make a turret, you have to have usually 1 or 2 rotors and 1 or 2 hinges, and putting those on a combat ship is usually a bad idea. And then most of the time, the custom turrets are using small grid weaponry, which we already talked about is way weaker than anything large grid. So even if you combine like 10 Gatling guns here, it's not going to be it's not going to be a great experience for you, most likely. So I would generally avoid both the custom turrets of any sort and the rocket turret unless you just want to have fun doing some things. So along with these, they will do a maximum range of 800 on their own, but to use the full range of these turrets, you would need to lock a target. So you can do that manually yourself through a cockpit, or you can use a AI defensive block, which will search for and lock targets for you. And so I recommend putting one of these on any grid that has a turret on it. So put a defensive block on there and set that up appropriately, and that will get the target locks so that you can get locks for up to 2K away and start shooting with artillery turrets. So then other options for manually controlled weapons, you've got the artillery cannon here, got a few of them here, and then you've got the railgun cannon, and you've got rocket and fireworks as well. I don't recommend fireworks. They don't do much damage and they hardly ever hit. The rockets, it's still an outdated weapon. I wouldn't recommend using it. The railgun is, I would say, if you're kind of an advanced ship builder and fighter, and you feel that you could make a really good use out of first strike capability with these railguns, and you can build the infrastructure for it, go for it. Otherwise, I generally would not recommend railguns. I would recommend sticking with the artillery cannons. You're just going to get a lot more use out of them, especially if you're a beginner. So, and then if you wanted your ship to be able to use those things without you in the ship, you would then have a flight move controller, which tells your ship how it should fly when it flies. A lot of times people have a defensive block just to search for targets, turn things on when they find it, and then switch over to an offensive block. But you could just have an offensive block. And the offensive block tells how to what distance to keep from a target when it's fighting, the attack pattern it should use, and other things. So you would usually have those 3 blocks if you're going to have your ship automatically use a main weapon like this. So then let's talk about placement. So this turret right here isn't really going to do a lot of good here. So I would need to move it up one just so that it could shoot over the other turrets and kind of stagger them along here. Each of these turrets, I've had them set up so they are shooting as far down as possible or as far up as possible. So notice if I was flying here, this artillery cannon could not shoot me at all. I have no chance. So keep that in mind. The assault turret has a little bit more range, but not too much. Now the Gatling and the interior turret have incredible range, so they're pretty great for shooting players and fighters and other things that move a lot. So yeah, keep that in mind. And so again, just to recap, generally you want to have a mixture of Gatling and interior turrets around your ship, covering most angles, and then fill in with whatever you can afford of artillery, or if you have to fall back to assault. And that's going to give you a really good mix, and then just ensure you have a defensive block on your grid and that's set up correctly, and you'll be in pretty good shape to start attacking and fighting and defending your grid. So I hope this was helpful, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next video. Thanks a lot. Bye.